Joy, thank you for coming, and I'll let you take the floor.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, guys. It feels weird. You guys are sitting so low, right? I'm like so tall. So, but thank you for having me. Thank you, Liz, for having me. It's like the perfect timing. I'm actually giving a similar talk next week at a conference with all my colleagues. So I'm trying to help them not get burnt out. So it's a very similar talk. I think self-care is, it seems like it's getting popular, but I think it's great because I think it's now the time to really focus in and recognize what is it that we need to do so that we don't get burnt out. But also, I like to think of it as if we could take care of ourselves, we could take care of others, right? I know some people think, oh, self-care, that sounds awfully selfish. But at the same time, if you don't, there are some dire consequences. And I could speak to that. And I was thinking about it as, if ever you got to meet someone from the future, you'd really want to talk to them as to like, how is it, right? Or someone that explored space or someone that explored another world. You'd want to know, how is it? So I'm here to tell you what it feels like when you're burnt out. And my wife there, Daisy, she's seen it. She's been my rock, and she knows the depths of what can happen when you really don't. It's not so much you don't take care of yourself, but you get so caught up and then you recognize that, wow, like I was not giving myself the best platform to succeed. And I'll spare all the details, but last year was very hard for me, but I had to make it through. But ultimately, your body will tell you, I could do it. I could give you a little bit. I got a little bit here. I got a little bit of energy here. Let me help you out. But in the end, the saying in terms of burning the candle from both ends is very, very real. So, when Liz had asked me to do this, I was like, this is great. I'm preparing this for a talk next week. But, she asked me like some of the 5 points, and it was great. So one of the first things I think is really important when we're talking about self-care, and we have all these great services and products out there, is align yourself to understand what is it that you're doing? Why are we doing this? Like, why do we want to be healthy? Like, what's even the point? And I challenge my clients when they come in to my clinic in terms of, well, what is it you're doing it for? I named my practice ENDVR Health because it's a big, lofty goal that every client that I see and every person I meet here has an endeavor of some sort personally to their life. And it could be something as grand as I want to, create an awesome brand and community to help Atlanta feel healthier, right? Or it could be as smaller but still important as I want to run a marathon for myself because I've never done that before. And not one endeavor is bigger than another, but it's absolutely important and personal to you. And I feel like sometimes you won't have it figured out, and that's okay. We're all in that journey. One day we will. But when you do, suddenly all the self-care stuff becomes, quote unquote, to me, easier to do because there's absolutely no question. I sometimes think of it kind of in terms of our military service. They have a high goal in terms of protecting this country. So everything that they have to do in preparation is in no question. We have to do those things. They'll wake up 3 a.m, they'll train, they'll do all those things because they have that higher goal. So what is your why and what is your goal? So I know for me, ENDVR Health, it is for me to be able to, one, selfishly have clinicians that are like-minded that really want to break the mold in healthcare, to be able to have that opportunity to serve clients the way you all deserve to be treated, but then also to have clients really live their best life with really pretty much almost the most minimal amount of care from the healthcare service, right? They call it self-care for a reason, right? Self-care in terms of we can handle it ourselves. And I think with the social media and all the information out there, I think it's there, and I think it could definitely happen, especially with events like these. And I love seeing people be empowered to know, oh yeah, I know what I need to do, this, and this, and I think that's absolutely great. Right? If healthcare potentially maybe runs out of business because we all know how to take care of ourselves, to me, that does not scare me one bit. Put me out of business, please. Does that make sense? So find your why, take time to do that, and maybe reach out to other people, maybe going through that journey. And it's an awesome discussion because once you do, everything else that I'll be talking on how to do it becomes so much easier. So in terms of with health and self-care, I think self-care is definitely mental, physical, and for those with where you're at spiritually too. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be like a religious connotation to, right? In terms of with that spirit, in terms of that connection you feel with friends, family, your loved ones, to me, that's spirit, right? In terms of like, why am I doing this? And I need to feel whole again. Because there's a lot of things that we could do in the gym. It's physical. There's a lot of things that we could do maybe mentally, whether it be meditation, yoga, keeping at ease. And then spiritual, I think, is very important from the community that you could find here with places like Fit Atlanta in terms of making you feel whole, making you feel piece of something bigger. And I think that's really important to me, and sometimes important that we incorporate, right? I mean, you could go to the gym and get physically fit, mentally strong, but if you're isolated, I don't know, what kind of life is that? Now, if that's important to you, if that isolation is great, cool, but I would challenge to think that surely there's still a community out there for them. And then you think you're seeing that here now in terms of the communities being built, this awesome stuff that Liz is creating in terms of that community. She's providing that for people around in Atlanta to realize that we're here together and we could be healthy together. So it's great. And again, that's why it was awesome to be part of this. So that's the physical, mental, and spiritual. You have to find those three realms. So in terms of with like the self-care, I alluded to it earlier in terms of healthcare. This is my soapbox. I think healthcare is great. I think there's awesome things that it could do. My dad went through a bout of cancer last year, absolutely beat it through the awesomeness of modern medicine. But I think if you look at it from a whole, healthcare is absolutely really, really good at treating disease. If something goes wrong, we're very good at helping it out. But I challenge, and I'm willing to tell any of my colleagues straight in their face, managers, CEOs, things like that, I would ask them, and I would tell them, what is it you're doing to actually make the community healthier? And it doesn't, going to a 5K and showing up in a table does not cut it. You know what I mean? To me, I would love to see big hospital systems, things like that, open gyms, have a lot more dietitians on staff, right? Have a lot more trainers on staff. To me, that is true health care, not sick care. So that's my soapbox. But knowing that, I think it's now even more important in terms of a self-care where now individuals are so empowered and they have those resources to be like, yeah, I could do this, I got this. Thank you to the internet, it's going to be very helpful for us. So knowing that, it feels like, oh man, I'm gonna have to do it all on my own. I don't want you to feel like you're alone on this. There's obviously all these resources. You have resources like this, events like this, and just know that you're not alone on this. There are other people. I'm not the only one thinking this. There are other colleagues out there, other professionals that are recognizing sick care has helped us to this point, but it's not gonna get us to really living our best lives in terms of making ourselves really, really healthy for the future. Does that make sense? Right? So I'm not disparaging it, but I know they could do better, and knowing that we all have a responsibility to ourselves and to each other to help each other out, to say, hey, this is what we can do to be better in terms of with our self-care. So let's get to the nitty-gritty in terms of self-care with what I've seen in clients, and then also with my experience in kind of the professional world with what I've seen. Take, for example, I remember with one of the professional athletes I worked with, he's a pro motocross racer, and he's training and testing. And if any of you are familiar with a motorbike on a dirt bike, you know, they're training out there in the heat of Florida in the summer. And I mean, they've been training and riding a motorcycle since they were 2. So it's nothing new. But even at the end of the day, he would say, man, I just feel tired. I feel drained. And I'd ask the typical questions. Are you sleeping enough? And we'll get to that. He said, yeah. Are you drinking enough water? Absolutely. I see it in there. His mechanic gives him the water and he keeps going, right? But then I recognized, and I was like, well, if he's sleeping, if he's drinking enough water, and the exercises are good, and I'm helping him in terms of with recovery, there's something else that's going on. And sure enough, I thought to myself, you know, with the company that I work with, they have a resource as a registered dietitian on staff. And I said, hey, you might want to talk to the registered dietitian. Maybe it's your fuel. Maybe we need to talk about refining your fuel and your strategy, right? And sure enough, from the consult with that registered dietitian, they found that he wasn't eating enough, which blew my mind because I literally watched how he was eating, and he needed to eat even more given the demands that he had to do. So I hope that gives an example in terms of sometimes it's not medicine, but it's really some of the almost quote unquote simple things that we could kind of look at You find the right professional to reach out to, and they'll easily give it. And it was like night and day difference. Once they found that, his team pretty much made way more meals, way more heartier plates, and he was like night and day different. Like he was killing it out there on the track. He didn't feel tired, and it even helped on race day. So if we're thinking performance, on race day, the plates were a lot bigger, snacks were a lot more abundant, and it was just small things like that that really pushed the needle for him to succeed at his best. So what does that look like for you, like for us professionals, us mere mortals that aren't pro athletes, right? This is what it means to me. So tell me if this is like a typical example for you, because this was like bad Ryan in terms of like how it looked and how I burnt myself out. So you wake up early, you didn't get enough sleep the night before, right? Kind of stayed up late watching Game of Thrones or something, right? Maybe catching up on The Bachelor, right? Yeah. So you sleep late, you wake up early, you drive through Atlanta traffic, you're already a little PO'd about that. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you didn't get any breakfast, so you grabbed the quick bar, maybe some coffee, right? And you knew you were gonna run late, so you even went to Starbucks anyways, and now you're running really late, but you know you needed it, right? You get to work, you're running late anyways, manager comes by, drops on you a big project you need to do or a deadline you need to do and deliver by the end of the day. Time goes on, you're getting irritable, now you're really hungry, you get to lunch. Well, guess what? Now you're really hungry, or your decision making is it gonna be that great for lunch? Probably not. Body's screaming at you for glucose, screaming at you for fuel, so you just grab anything you go. And now you're running late anyway, so you're just gonna quickly grab it, eat it, get back to work. It's 4 or 5 o'clock. Didn't really have a chance to prepare your gym bag, so you're definitely not going to the gym. You drive home, traffic as well. Again, you're PO'd, you're pissed off. You get home, and then you get home, you open up your fridge, there's nothing there in your fridge. So then you gotta Uber Eats it, and then you're gonna repeat the whole process again. Does that sound like a fulfilling life to you? Does that sound like something that you were able to really serve yourself the best to everyone that you need to encounter? That was me. And that was me, my wife could tell you, that was me for almost like a few months to almost a year. Living like that and feeling like, yeah, I could get this. Let me get a quick coffee run. Let me get a quick Red Bull run. And you know, I wish I came up with this. There's a favorite podcast of mine, Aubrey Marcus, and he would call it, those are fires. Quick fires to be able to quickly burn, go for it. But you eventually get burnt out. These things are great. They're like the coffees, the Red Bulls, things like that, but they're really meant to be temporary. You're not supposed to be living off of that. So from a self-care standpoint, one of the first things is absolutely sleep. Going back to my morning. This interesting study I read a few weeks preparing for this, where they did a study where they randomly gave the subjects 2, 4, 6, and 8 hours sleep. So they let them sleep, but they interrupted them. And then they did that for the course of the week, right? And then for the people that got interrupted 8 hours or less, they got pretty much an equivalent of almost 3 days worth of no sleep over the week. Then they tested them in terms of their cognitive awareness and reaction time. Well, people that had 8 hours or less of sleep had really poor cognitive performance. And it's not like, you know, big algebraic equations. It was just almost simple, what the study read, like recognition and trying to match like the thing that showed up. It was just simple things like that. And the interesting part of the study was that people that were going through the study in the week felt like they were still okay, right? So I think that's where all of us are like, yeah, I'm fine. I got 5 hours of sleep last night. I'm good. But you eventually will hit that wall. Like for me, I think it was Thursday night, I had to sleep in. Like I tried, I thought I felt good. And then Thursday night, my body was like, no, you really gotta rest it. So sleep is gonna be one thing. It's like literally the beginning part of your day, you wake up refreshed, and it's absolutely necessary. Now, it's one of those things where the study said, if you get 15 hours of wakefulness during the day, just know that there are biological consequences. So to me, it's like, I'm not saying you have to get it, but just understand and prepare yourself. If you're gonna have a long day, maybe prepare the next few days recovery. Does that make sense? Because with pro athletes, they're staying up. They're going out after their matches or after their games. I get it, I want you to enjoy yourself. I think that's important. The spiritual, that connection, the community, but then understand, you're not so much gonna pay for it, but you're gonna have to make sure you plan ahead as to, okay, make sure you give yourself some recovery time. Make sure you give yourself some nap times. things like that. Does that make sense? So the next thing, moving on to the day, is diet. A healthy diet, not the kind where you're not taking calories, but like just an overall healthy diet. That is absolutely not within my wheelhouse. That's where you'd have to, I really would highly recommend partnering with a registered dietitian. They know so much more about how to fuel our body. I know the basics, but if you're looking for really like the nitty gritty, then absolutely find a registered dietitian that'll help. And they know, I'd like to think, and I don't want to speak for them, but I know that with the ones that I've worked with, they share my same sentiments in terms of like, healthcare is great, but it could really be better. And, right? And I see you nodding your head, you're like, yes, yes, yes. Like, they're the ones, if we think medical doctors prescribe drugs, I look at them as like they prescribe really healthy fuel for us. You're gonna be straight to it and change it. But yeah, they're the ones who would be the resources to help you with that. So the fuel, place things like this, like what we give into our body, if we recognize that this is important, this fuels us, and it empowers us to reach our why, I mean, there's no better thing than that. So I think for me, if I were to have gotten a good night rest, it would have been oatmeal, some fruit. I'm gonna get my coffee, I'm gonna get that. I like to down a cup of water too, make sure I don't get dehydrated, and then that'll help me fuel my better decisions moving forward, right? So that's the fuel part. Hydration is, I know that sounds really easy, but that's another thing. I'm gonna share a story. I would tell my wife, I was like, man, I feel really tired today. And she's always on me and saying, well, did you drink water? And I say, no. And sure enough, when I drink water, and I'm talking like plenty of water, I suddenly feel alert. And Google it for yourself, it's really interesting. Symptoms of dehydration sounds a lot like what everyone goes through during the day. Tiredness, lethargy, right? Things like that. So not to get too detailed, but if your urine is way too yellow, then you need to drink a lot more water, okay? Just as simple as that, all right? And then dehydration, and then the last thing that I really think I find with a lot of my clients is meditation, mindfulness, but then planning in terms of your recovery and rest. So with the pro athletes that I've worked with, or even some of the athletes that come into my clinic, and I literally ask them, what is their typical day? 100%, most of the time, they're doing a lot. And then they're looking at me and they're like, well, what exercises do I need to do? And I tell them straight up, I was like, well, I think you're doing plenty. Let's talk about what you could maybe slow down and do. And let's see how that works. Does that make sense? There's no point to me for a pro athlete or someone that's really active plus a full-time job for me now to suddenly dump a bunch of exercises that I'm asking them to do every day, right? You've probably heard professionals do that. Why would I do that? It almost like spits in the face of what they really need is rest and recovery. So think of it this way, things like this. I hope you're relaxed and enjoying yourself. That counts. Going out to yoga, out there in the park, that counts. A walk with your dog, that counts. It doesn't always have to be such big, grandiose, Om type session. It could be something where literally your mind and brain could just turn off, right? My wife knows mine. I'll just watch YouTube and literally just veg out and just hang out there. That's mine, right? So whatever it is for you, allow yourself to do that. I think that's where that self-care comes from. Give yourself the permission to do that. For every one of us that are so go-getter and we need to do this, allow yourself to just say, you know what? Just relax. Take a seat and just enjoy whatever is it that you need to do. And I think that mindfulness is where that's coming from. You know, one of the best sessions where you could get your mindfulness is exercise. Because I don't know about you, but it's very hard to lift a barbell from the ground with the phone in the hand. Does that make sense? You are focusing on the exercise, you're focusing on the workout class. There's no better place for a mindfulness session than an intense workout or a workout that you enjoy. And I want to preface that too, that you enjoy. Because if you're doing workouts that you don't enjoy, you're just adding more in terms of that stress, that kind of demands on your brain in terms of kind of just that go, go, go. I have to do this, but I don't enjoy it. Well, then stop it, right? I tell my clients all the time, do you enjoy that? Is that something you enjoy? It's like, no, not really. I tell them straight up, like, well, then find something else. It's okay. So sometimes they need that external validation, that permission to say, it's okay. Do something that you enjoy, change it up, and allow that for yourself. Because it may immediately impact that short term, but I just know that in that long term, they'll start making better choices in terms of this is what I want to do, this is what I don't want to do, things like that. Does that make sense? One interesting study they did in terms of stress was in Japan. They took business workers, so people that work in an office all day, and they trained them in kind of a stress management course. So they did like kind of meditation. It was a simple meditation. They let them be in a quiet room and literally be quiet and kind of focus on breathing, things like that. Did that for several weeks, and sure enough, the reported levels of stress, now notice they didn't do anything else, they just did that. They let them go on with their lives, whatever they else did. But with that, they reported better, like improved, decreased stress levels, mindfulness, happiness at work. And I think, so the way I look at it is, from the aggregate, from the overall, I think it just allowed those office workers simply the time to just relax. Simply allow that brain to turn off. And the studies are there when you're looking at chronic pain and its relation to stress. I don't want to get into like the nitty-gritty details, but there are pieces in our brain that really work together with that, right? That flight or fight response. Stress, 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 go, go, go. It heightens your brain's awareness to these stimuli. And it's an overdrive. And it could manifest itself in your emotions, in your decisions, and then ultimately how you live, right? So think about that. This one thing I want to give to you guys in terms of an exercise, and we could do it right here while you're sitting. Hopefully it's comfortable. These look comfortable. You could try it with me, and I'll do it here with you too. So get yourself comfortable in your seat. With clients, they're usually lying on my treatment table. And believe it or not, I will actually even dim the lights. Sometimes the stimulus is that crazy, right? So go ahead and close your eyes, and I'll close my eyes with you. All I want you to do is now suddenly think of nothing, but if a thought runs through your mind, let it come by. Let it pass. Don't actively block it out. Don't say, man, I don't want to think about groceries right now. No, just let it by, right? Just like if you're watching 400 and traffic drives by, just let it drive on by, right? And really kind of allow yourself to relax. Start thinking about, and we'll start it from the ground up. Let's start thinking about your feet. Just your feet. Wiggle your toes a little bit, and then let your feet relax into the floor. Now let's move up a little bit. We'll skip up to kind of your thighs and your butt. You're sitting in this comfortable camp chair. Go ahead and squeeze your butt, and then let it relax slowly, okay? Then from here, we're gonna move up to our stomach. You can put your hand on your stomach if you want. Take a big breath in and feel your tummy fill up with air, and then let it relax. And do one more breath, but I want you to breathe in, hold it for a second or two, and then really extend out all the air and let it breathe all the way out, empty out all the air, and then go back to your quiet breathing. Next, we have our shoulders. A lot of tension. It's very common. Feel your shoulders melt into your chair, melt down. You may have lost a few inches just already just by that relaxation, right? We'll go back to our hands and fingers. Lots of brain area dedicated to our hands and fingers. Go ahead and you could wiggle your fingers a little bit and then just let it relax. Last but not least, we have our neck and head. If you don't have anything to rest your head on, don't do this, but just let your head and neck feel a little more relaxed. Give it the attention it needs and then let go. And then the other one I always like to do, imagine your face muscles, right? I'm gonna open my eyes just to check you guys. I want you to, with your forehead and your eyebrows, make an angry face, really angry face, like really angry, like you're pissed off angry, and then release it and let it go. And then with your cheekbones, make a biggest smile, the biggest smile you can. Those are muscles around your cheek, and then let that melt. And then from here, focus on your breathing. I know you hear the air conditioning going on. That's okay. Just be mindful of where you're at. I'll let you sit here for a few seconds. And you're done. and you could open your eyes. How did that feel? Did it feel different? Did it feel better? Better subjective. There's other people be like, I didn't feel anything. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you needed a little bit longer, right? But that is a great way. I looked up studies on this, and sure enough, this has been a strategy for chronic pain patients. And I think it kind of makes sense, right? If you're in chronic pain, if you're in a lot of pain, every day, day in, day out, you almost feel like there's no hope in feeling normal again. You're trying to seek, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to find something to help me. This is one of my go-tos. It's not gonna cure everything, but it just takes the edge off, you know? It takes that volume knob and turns it down just a little bit. And it's the weekend, we're already in that state of mind, right? But this is another thing as just a way, like that pure self-care, right? I had a professor tell me that our ultimate medicine cabinet is inside our brain with that. Yeah, it's your question.
One of the things actually the exercise does in the body is a science-based. It increases the production of the acetylcholine in the brain. Mm-hmm. And when you have enough actually the acetylcholine in the brain, acetylcholine smooths the connections between different holes and parts of the brain. And even during the night times, it helps to increase the level of the melatonin mm-hmm. that takes you to the sleep.
Yeah, thank you. What's your name?
Farhad.
Farhad, thank you.
Actually, I'm a physical therapist.
Oh, awesome. Hey, that's not planned. That was totally not planned. Thank you so much. Yeah, and you know, the science behind it, it's like a rabbit hole, but those are the things I really try and simplify it for the client. If you want to get into the side, we could nerd out all day, but I think, again, it's that ultimate medicine cabinet up here, and then partnering with like-minded services, like-minded communities that'll really, really get you there. So thank you for having me, guys. If you had any questions, let me know. I'll be back there providing stretching and mobility stuff, but Liz, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah?
So before we get up and try